Yes, indeed, folks, last section of the show, and it's the Illusion of Choice! And this week's Illusion of Choice topic here on Blue Plays on WCRadio.com is this. Goes from Hornshade of Quel'Thalassi Uni, says this. Dear Mr. Biscuit, rather than the usual discussions about the difficulty of raids, I'd like to ask you for your opinion on the structure of the PvE endgame. At the moment, in the current expansion, all of the tiered content is located in single long raids only. In TBC, Tier 4 was split over various raids, e.g. Tier 5 level gear over SSC and TK, and in Vanilla WoW it was all mixed. It started off with various raids and ended up with all Tier 3 in Nax. Do you prefer the TBC structure or the Wrath of the Lich King structure? Personally, I prefer separating the gear over many shorter raids. One of my reasons for this includes the fact that the guilds could split their raid time between multiple locations, e.g. 1 week on one, 1 week on another. All the other reasons I have forgotten. Well done, you've got the other reasons. At the moment, my guild is up to Yogg-Saron 25, and I'm losing interest in raiding a lot faster than in TBC, where there was more variety. In Old WoW, pretty much every week is exactly the same, and while raids tend to be pretty repetitive week in, week out anyway, at least there was a bit of variation as regards to the location in TBC. The only opposing argument that I could think of is that Blizzard would have to come up with more raids. Oh no, not more raids! Unless they manage to split a big raid into two with one final boss each, and they are rapidly running out of lore characters to kill off. So, do you think that Blizz should keep this structure into the next expansion, or go back to the TBC structure? I make it no secret that my best time in raiding was during TBC, and I still believe that TBC raiding counters are superior to a lot of the stuff that has been in Wrath so far. Admittedly, there are a lot of good fights in Old War, but there are also a lot of good fights in TBC. Now, the structure is not something that we usually talk about, and I think it is worthy of discussion. Here's the thing, they've released two massive, stonking, great raiding counters. Those are the big meat. We've got two dungeons that have got like 14 bosses in each. Now, is it just me, or does that seem an awful lot in comparison to previous raiding counters? I remember a very long instance back in the day. It went by the name of Molten Core, and I'm sick of the goddamn sight of the thing. It was huge. Now, of course, they've learned from that, and they don't have stupid respawning trash and all crap like that. But big long instances and having those be the only real content that you get is not a good idea. We found ourselves, while I was playing in Lethe before I retired from raiding for a while, that going to VOA was actually one of the highlights of the week because it broke up the monotony of going to the same damn instance night in, night out. I think the best example of, and this is after the fixes, the best example of a tier at any point in WoW was Tier 5. Yeah? I think that was the best set of content. SSC and TK, two instances one of which was quite small, contained 4 bosses, the other which contained about 6 or 7. They were both just the right size. I liked both of those instances a lot. I think they were really cool. I had some of my best times in there. I think Vash was an amazing encounter. I really do. I think Leothorus was an amazing encounter. I think that, even though it was a little bit simplistic, Voidreave was an amazing encounter. Kael'thas, pre-nerf, was an amazing encounter. Those were not massive, great, stonky instances. Those were actually quite small. 4 bosses, not particularly big. 6 bosses, in the case of SSC. What's so wrong with that, I might ask you? I don't think there's anything. I think the ability to split your time between multiple locales is good. Yeah? It's like, okay, tonight we're gonna go clear TK. And we can do that, and it's really not that hard. As in, we don't have to spend a massive amount of time in here. Or, say, we are trying to kill Kael'thas, but we've got SSC on farm. Okay, we clear SSC in a night, and then we've got the rest of the week on TK. That's fair enough. Having that variety in there, and obviously you went back just to kill stuff like Magtheridon and Grawl and things like that, is actually kind of important. You'd be surprised at the amount of variety there was in regards to raiding with TBC, and indeed at Tier 6 level content, you were faced with 3 raids. Obviously, you had Sunwell at the end of it, which was arguably Tier 6.5-ish level content. It dropped Tier 6 level gear. You had Mount Hyjal, and then of course you had Black Temple. And you were working on this stuff at the same kind of time. When you went up your tier, you wouldn't just be faced with one new dungeon. It's like you don't beat Nax then just go on to Old War. No. It was more like you beat SSC and TK, and now you've moved up to 2 new dungeons, and you get to split your time between the 2. So people got to see newer stuff. And if they were sick to the back teeth for seeing one, it's just like, okay, we'll go and do the other one then. You know, we'll give you a bit of a break from this. Let's go do that. No one wants to do it with Nax these days because it's been killed. You know, it's done. It's done to death. We've seen these encounters for months and months and months. We're bored. I actually liked the fact that they had like at least 2 dungeons on each tier of content. And I think that's something actually that Wrath is suffering from. This mind-numbing monotony and the grindy linearity of the whole thing. The just inevitability of saying, great, we get to the next tier of content, it's 1 dungeon. And in the case of Ulduar, it's really freaking huge. Which is fine, but let's face it, there's not that much variety in the bosses. They're good, don't get me wrong, but there's also not that much variety in the locales either. A lot of the dungeon looks the same. There are exceptions. Don't get me wrong, there are exceptions, but a lot of it does look the same. And that can get really boring, in the same way that Molten Core was boring to look at because it all looked the same. You don't design instances that way. Nax was great to look at because they changed it around. Even though it was all, hey, undead, it's different flavours of undead. Can't complain. But then, of course, we're sick to the back teeth of Nax now anyway. So yeah, TBC, the design and the structure of the raid content was just plain better. It was. The way that you went through the content was better. It may have been less friendly for casuals or whatever, but since when have I had sympathy for those people? Who cares? You know, they can work their way through via knowledge and skill like everybody else. I would like to see that, especially if you're going to develop smaller instances that don't have as much work put into them. You know, the Colosseum, prime example. Why is it that we can't get 2 raid instances? Why do we only get 1 with 5 bosses in it? Yeah, we get a 5-man, but yeah, the raiders will do it once and then that'll be done with it. Maybe there's a nice item in there, maybe there isn't. There's supposed to be one encounter in there that's pretty interesting, whereby you fight the ghosts or visions of previous raid bosses. That'll be pretty cool. You know, like a level 80 Hogger is actually in there, so that's kind of exciting. But aside from that, well, hey, it's 1 dungeon. And you can argue, oh, but it's got all these different modes. It's still the same dungeon. It's still the same bosses with slightly different mechanics and slightly buffed damage and HP. Give us more. Give us more things to do. Raiding was so much more interesting back there for that reason and that reason alone. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a few things to say before we go on to the shout-outs. First thing is first. Stormtamer has organised a little contest. And the contest is to submit stings. Yes, indeed, stings. Now, I will download this sting and play it for you. It's kind of cool. It's by Chaos Smurf. This is just to give you a little example, and you can win yourself some of the unique WoW TCG tabards as well as party grenades to annoy the hell out of everybody in the auction house. Just a couple of little casual prizes. And this sting was created by Chaos Smurf. This will give you an idea of what a sting is. So I'm going to pause the music and let you check this out.
This is Chaos Smurf, WoW Idol Loser, and you're listening to WoW Radio at wcradio.com.
There, that's an example of what a sting is. It's just a little bumper that we put at the end of our breaks just to say, hey, it's WoW Radio. So if you can come up with anything creative, then feel free to submit it. There's information on the front page at wcradio.com, so go check it out. Also, there will apparently be a special mystery guest on... But wait, there's Lore tomorrow. You should probably check that out. I have no idea who this mystery guest is. Not a clue. That's because it's a mystery. They didn't even bother to tell me. Also, the Friday night free-for-all will be happening tonight at very, very late time. You want to check out the front page to find out when that's happening. And it'll actually be hosted by Pride, who will invariably tell us about the lore of the game as opposed to anything actually useful about what's going on. So yeah, go and check that out. And one final thing, we are still doing our planet-side invasion. Those of you who maybe want something a little bit different to WoW, it's the massively multiplayer online FPS planet-side. We have a ton of people playing. We are doing our next operation tomorrow at 1900 British Standard Time. That is 2 PM EST. You can download the trial, check out our forums at wcradio.com, click the PlanetSide Invasion forum to find out where to get the free trial for the game, 14 days free trial. And download it at greyfalcon.net/psinstall.zip. That's greyfalcon.net/psinstall.zip. My name in game is MPTK. Log on at around that time. I will be around. We're playing on the Terran Republic on the Gemini server. I will be sparring in the broadcast chat to get your invites to the outfit. Come roll tanks with us. Come roll over people. Blow shiz up, as it were. It's very therapeutic. Right, we are at the end of the show, folks, so it's time for shout-outs. Email the Murloc@gmail.com. That is the Murloc@gmail.com. Also, you can send your shout-outs in via IRC. PM them to me. IRC@mmrc.com, #WoW Radio. Alternatively, tweet me at TotalBiscuit. That is at TotalBiscuit on Twitter. And I may or may not read them out. So here we go. A shout-out to my guild Cynic on Trollbane EU. That's from Dotted. Wow, there are still guilds on Trollbane EU? I got out of there as soon as humanly possible. Seriously, that server was terrible. Hey, TB, can I get a shout-out to Duratar Hardcore on Boulderfist EU for being awesome? Well, yes, you can in fact get that. And a quick shout-out has to go to my son, who is 6 years old today. That's Ryan, so congratulations, you are 6 years old. Ding, and so forth. You will soon be able to learn new skills. A shout-out to my friend who managed to kill Mimeron tonight, and a shout-out to me for not being able to log into IRC 6th show in a row because of, well, apparently something. Well, that's very descriptive, thank you very much. Great show as always. That's from Orhid on Steam Wheel Cartel EU. That's one of those RPs. Dirty. A shout-out to DJ Timekiller for being my Hon buddy. That's from Slamon. Hey GB, want to give a shout-out to Gaia, Frampo, and Royd in my guild Rapture on Sourfang US. Shout out to Dragonmore EU from Kanzidai. And shout out to Shattered Twilight that disbanded, and to what the hell's that? Cyanol and Aracus and Ralan. That's from Aracos. A shout out to my adventuring and general companion Pale Princess. That's from Mr. NNJ. And a shout out to my guild Order of the White Tower on Featherman US. We are celebrating our 5th anniversary come this January. A shout out to me for being elite and drop in. Shout out to Aragos for listening. That's from Shinoda. A shout out to Sickett on Thunderhorn. Clearly 1850 2v2 rating, which apparently now doesn't matter anymore. Gonna get a shout out to Chaotic on Fizzcrank. Stay out of the damn clouds, noob. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Can I get a shout out to Killer Baboon Troops on Shattered Hand EU for finally downing Firefighter and getting the rusted Proto Drake. Did you exploit the Judgment of Light? Did you? Did you? We shall accuse you. You didn't put a video up, so clearly you're cheating. I'd just like to give a shout out to myself for finally hitting level 80 after way too long. That's from Kalashin of Zulu Guild of Deathorak. Always a cool name. I like Deathorak. I think that's pretty awesome. Can I get a shout out to me for my 18th birthday today and for getting the Insane last night? What? Someone actually has that? God, go play another game. Go play PlanetSide with us. It's more fun. A shout out to Majus for being the best class ever. A shout out to me for shouting out from the restroom. What? That's from Brot. I am terrified by that idea. You know, but bearing in mind, as someone that actually tweets from the lavatory, though I can't really complain. Can I get a shout out to BioWare for taking Mythic under their wing? That's from Mortonot. Well, yes, I'm expecting to see the wonders of Warhammer Sonic Brotherhood coming up every day now. Ladies and gentlemen, I am done. Yes, indeed. I am spent. My name is Total Biscuit. This has been Blue Please, and one final shout out must go to Exodus. Congratulations for getting your first world first in the most dishonest way possible and shaming the entire American raiding community in the process. Well done! Very well done. Oh, and of course, yes, you couldn't do it without crying your eyes out.
This is what you crybaby young players need now, is a little pat on the butt so you know you're getting a good job. That has to motivate you? How about the feeling of not getting embarrassed? How about that, you young guns out?
Yes. Good night.